So too, please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll take a couple minutes and just go around table introduce. We started there last time, so we'll start with you, Stefan.
Stefan Bahuniak, board member.
James Garofalo, board member.
Shannon Levy, board member. Beth Mysteriak, board member.
Jay Hatfield, board vice chair.
Chris Champagne, board chair.
Kristen Harmeling, board member.
Leanne Doherty, board clerk.
Dr. Susan Compton, superintendent. Fonda Tenza, associate superintendent.
Salvatore Bucci, business manager.
Thanks. Okay, the first item we have up is public comment. Just going to read a little piece here. So public comment provides opportunity for public to make a comment. It's not a dialogue between the board and the public. Based on what's heard, the board may choose to add a topic to the agenda. And if questions are posed that the chairman is able to answer, those questions may be addressed under the chairman comments portion of the agenda. The board will not discuss personal matters. Comments should be respectful and no longer than 3 minutes in length so that all that wish to comment may have the opportunity to do so. All public wanting to comment will state their name and address for the record prior to addressing the board. I see we have a lot of folks here tonight, so we are going to stick to our 3-minute timeline pretty strictly. So first up, do we have anyone for public comment? And there is a shine-up sheet on that table, so if you are going to make a comment, please come up, sign your name and address. Anyone for public comment going twice?
At first.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Kiana Magnus. I'm a local first responder and a mother of 2 girls in both the middle school and Bungay Elementary School. I just wanted to share that I do want our school district to unmask our kids, just like, sorry, I'm out of breath, I just ran here. Just like Oxford has, Prospect, Beacon Falls, Naugatuck, and many other surrounding districts that we usually also follow suit with. Enough is enough. I work in healthcare. I see it. It's not doing anything for anyone. It's keeping our kids from getting regular viruses, which is doing nothing but weakening their immune systems. My kids complain all the time on how they're out of breath, walking around, especially my middle schooler, walking around all day. They can't understand each other when they're speaking. They can't understand the teachers, or the teachers can't understand them half the time when they're speaking. They were promised all these different mask breaks, and I understand it's difficult, especially in this school, but my 6th grader is getting minimal mask breaks, if any, for weeks on end. It's becoming extremely difficult for my children. It's hard for me to see and watch because, I'll be quite honest, I go on calls and I don't wear a mask on all of them. It's ridiculous. Enough is enough. It's been 2 years. Enough is enough. Unmask the kids. It shouldn't even be a discussion at this point. No one here that I'm aware of is even in healthcare, has any experience in it to even make that decision. So I came here with healthcare experience to let you know it's done. It's not helping anyone. It's just children's educations are declining from it. From the miscommunication and the being able to understand each other and the distraction, because when I work and I'm wearing a mask, it is distracting. And I'm an adult, and you can't sit there and say that it's not. It's bothersome. You're playing with it, especially as a child, playing with it, moving it, getting in trouble for not wearing it. My daughter's in second grade, and She got in trouble during recess because she tried to play a card game with a friend because it was indoor recess, and even though they were wearing masks, they weren't socially distanced enough. Our kids aren't getting the social skills that they should be developing and learning. Bullying is becoming a bigger issue because of it. The pediatric mental health crisis we're in right now that no one wants to seem to talk about is a huge concern because I pick up 90% of them in this area. It's gotten out of hand. We're talking about masks and vaccinations and all this other crap that doesn't matter, but not one person has sat there and raised any sort of concern for our children's mental health and the mental health crisis that started since this pandemic has started and the hospitalizations of pediatrics in our own area. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Lily.
Dear Dr. Compton, Ms. Tenxa, and the Board of Education members, my name is Kara Leposki. I am a 4th grade student at Chatfield the Presley School. I live on 12 Legion Road. I think that students that go to Seymour schools should be allowed to choose if they want to wear masks. During gym, it's hard to breathe. There are places in gym where we can take our mask off, but I don't want to do that because I want to keep doing the activities because we only have gym 1 week every month. And instead of wasting time taking a mask break. It is also hard to keep my mask on my face because it is itchy and it hurts my ears. Sometimes I can't understand my teacher because her voice sounds muffly like Charlie Brown's teacher. Finally, I can't see my friends' faces when their masks are on. It is hard to hear them talking. Sometimes I can't even tell if they're laughing or they're mad at something I said. It should be up to my mom and dad to decide if I wear a mask because they know me better than anyone. Thank you for your time. Hi, my name is Olivia Nunez, and I think there should be no masks. It is hard for children to hear each other, and you don't know if somebody is smiling or laughing. And it's super hot. They get less mask breaks than ever. We should be able to breathe, and it hurts children's ears a lot. I can't hear anybody.
John Nunez, 26 Deerfield Drive. I'm not a scientist. I can't come up here with numbers, but I know we are at a point where we have the opportunity to let our kids get back to normal. Adults have the opportunity to stay at their job, leave their job if they believe in masks or not. Our children do not. I just hope that you guys vote the right way. I know that there has been no vote yet, so I'm not going to get up here and chastise anybody, but we're at a point where we can get back to as normal as possible. I have 3 children. One of them has never seen a maskless day in her school career. And at this point, to keep it going just for whatever the reason, I feel is unfair. So I hope you guys vote the right way.
Hello, I'm Jessica Nunez, 26 Deerfield Drive. And I am someone that does work in healthcare. And I have seen so many patients, and I've seen the other side of the pandemic, so I understand why we have lived in the fear that we've lived in. But I also feel that over the past 2 years, we've listened to what the government has put in place. And we've never questioned it, we've just listened to what they said. So our governor has said that it is okay for our kids to go to school with optional masks. And I hope that you will all agree with what our governor is saying. While I haven't always agreed with the government, at this point, I can't see why we would follow what the government is saying and then not follow it in this instance. Our kids are covering their faces, I don't have to repeat what the children have said, what other parents have said. They can't hear their teachers. They can't see smiles on their faces. Working in healthcare and talking to my patients, I am often pulling down my mask because people can't hear me and they can't hear what I'm saying. And I have to pull down my mask so they can see my face. And there are children, my youngest daughter or my middle daughter, she has a hard time with certain words. And her teacher didn't notice that she was having these speech issues because she can't see her face when she's talking, so it's hard for her to help her. My older daughter, she had a really hard time in school when we were out of school and didn't get the help that she needed because, again, we have always been listening to what the government says. So at this point, I hope that you will all consider letting our parents make the choice for our children. We aren't asking for much. We're just asking for the right as parents to decide whether our children wear masks or don't wear masks in school. We're not saying that people can't wear masks. They absolutely can. This is not about right or wrong or mask versus unmask. It's just giving us the option to let our kids experience school as we all experienced school, without suffocating behind masks in gym classes or in music classes. My older daughter told me last year they had to sing in their head during music class because they couldn't, they didn't want them to sing out loud. Audiate, she's telling me. So that to me is so sad that we are expecting our children to sing in their head or, cut holes in their masks to play instruments, and the experience that they're receiving is so different than any of us have. So like others have said, it's been 2 years. Let's get back to normal as best we can while keeping our kids and our families safe. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to mirror what pretty much everybody else has said here. I think it's time to move on. There's a lot bigger issues in this district. We shouldn't be spending all this time and resources arguing anymore about these masks. I mean, one big problem is trying to figure out how we missed $800,000 in the budget that every single taxpayer in this town is going to have to pay for now. What I thought I'd do is get up and mirror my daughter, Carolyn Horowitz. She goes to Bungay Elementary School, and she's in 3rd grade. They've been writing opinion pieces in their classroom, and she chose to write an opinion piece about why students should be unmasked and why that's her opinion. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read a few excerpts that I think are especially related to what is going through these children's minds today. I think this paragraph was especially powerful to me. She said, "I want the board to picture this, a happy classroom full of smiling kids. But by telling us to wear a mask, you've prevented this. One of the main reasons I come to school every day is to see smiles. But by making us wear a mask, that's changed for me. We have a face to be seen, not to be hidden, a voice to be heard, not to be muffled. I know that you know it's wrong. You just refuse to do anything about it." And she's right. We've all been complacent in this nonsense. It's over. These masks don't do anything. It's like trying to carry grains of sand in a grocery cart. The CDC has come out and said these cloth masks that half of us are wearing do nothing. People have a choice. If you want to wear an N95 mask, wear an N95 mask. You want to be vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you want to stay home and homeschool, stay home and homeschool. It's about choice. If you get sick, then there's treatments for this disease. And the people, the age group, the cohort that we're talking about, it's clear that I'm willing to bet that most of our children have already gotten COVID, have experienced COVID, right? I mean, look at the reports. I mean, it's just common sense. So can we get back to focusing on the kids and important things like budget and making sure that they're learning and advancing and are able to be successful instead of muffling? We've already taken a year and a half with the nonsense virtual learning last year, okay? We've already taken their childhood from them we've talked about the psychiatric issues that all these kids are experiencing, speech delays, and these are younger cohorts. Maybe they're more adaptable, but I can't even imagine what's happening for kids who are in high school, missing out on high school, teen suicides, drug abuse. The cure has been worse than the disease. Stop the nonsense now.
live at 46 Greenwood Circle, and every time I come to speak, I always make sure I bring up the mental health awareness for children, and I do believe that what's going on is affecting it. The statistics are showing that it's affecting the kids' mental health, and it's a very personal topic to me. My 14-year-old was diagnosed with depression throughout the pandemic, and just an example of the communication with the schools and how I think they could do a lot better. My son was having an issue with some of the protocols and the guidelines that are still in place with school and how it's affecting his anxiety. And he didn't protest, he didn't do anything crazy. He wrote a very structured, very well-written email that was ended with, "This is not meant with any disrespect. I'm on the student council and I just want you to have a perspective from a student." That was 2 weeks ago, and he hasn't heard anything. He hasn't gotten a single response. He hasn't gotten, "Thank you for your input. Let's have a sit down. Let's try to work through your issues, your anxiety. Let's talk about it." He got none of that. It's radio silence. And that to me is frustrating because he's 14, so he's old enough to use his voice, and I'm proud of him that he did. It took him 2 whole days to write that email and then another day to correct it. And I don't want to send an email myself because I don't know if I could be as articulate as him because I'm incredibly frustrated. I'm proud that he took the time to do that and write it, but it's I was here at the last meeting and there was, a lot of talk of the social emotional learning and how, the schools are speaking with the children and making sure they're okay and they're checking in on them. And I have a kid that has diagnosed depression that the school, the counselor that they know about, and I have spoken with them greatly, especially last year when schools were shut down, on how, he was in a very dark place, and that statistic with suicide and mental illness is very scary to me. And it's affecting more kids than you think, and a lot of it is not just from the masks, but it's from the protocols and the guidelines and the social distancing. And, I have an introverted child. He's quiet, he keeps to himself, he does good work, he's got really good grades, and it's hard for him to open up and make new friends and this and that, so he tries to just stay on the straight and narrow, and I'm very frustrated with the fact that he did what was best for him and write an email, and he got no response, and it's just an example to me of how these guidelines and the communication and everything else is really affecting the kids. And last year when I saw it going on with my 6-year-old, I saw the anxiety of him. I told you guys this at one of the meetings. I brought him to a playground and he had a full-on meltdown because he wasn't wearing a mask. And you know what I did? I pulled him out of public. He's not in public school anymore. He's in a private program and he's thriving. And I love where he is. I love his school. We're like a big family, but it's not where I envisioned my child to go. I envisioned him in public school, and he's not having the same experience, but he's having the experience he should be having. It's mask-free, it's mandate-free, and he's thriving, and, it's sad, and our school has never gotten COVID. It's, like I said, it's mask-free, and we've all been safe and healthy, and we wash our hands, and so, I hope the masks come off tonight, but that was all I wanted to say.
Domino 7 Fawn Hollow Drive. Good evening, Superintendent Compton, Board of Education members. I'm here tonight just to echo what I spoke publicly about at the last meeting, and that is support of mass choice, like the people that spoke before me. As decisions are made tonight, I urge you to think not about the physical health of our town's students, as data has shown that an overwhelming majority of children have not suffered serious disease from COVID, but rather now make decisions based on their social, emotional, and mental health. That is now where the data is pointing. Nationwide, there has been a severe uptick of mental and social health services, such as counseling services, anxiety increases, speech and language services. I know at the last meeting I attended, someone reported how counseling services are very much up, even in our district of Seymour, as well as special education referrals. I also think it's important to note that speech and language referrals are up by over 300% nationwide. And just this past week, the CDC has quietly lowered the developmental milestones for children for the first time in 20 years, including speech and language development standards. Specifically, children should now know 50 words at 30 months rather than the previous 24 months. So to put that into perspective, the CDC quietly pushed a 20-year expected speech milestone achievement date back by a half of a year, while still continuing to push masks for kids ages 2 and up. Additionally, this is just a side note, but crawling is no longer a milestone. Walking changed from 12 months to 18 months. And talking changed from 12 months to 15 months. So I cite these examples even though they refer to our young children and our baby population, because it's time to see what this guidance is doing now. These are only a few examples of how the CDC is continuing to lower the bar for our kids' development due to the stresses of the pandemic, and it's time to give them back normalcy and start working on the catch-up. It's important that Seymour does not follow suit and continue to lower the bar here as well. These lowered standards will create a trajectory of lower developmental standards in our school-aged children here in Seymour, up through high school. Although these negative effects on children are not at the direct fault of this Board of Education, continuing them would be irrational, unnecessary, and reckless. Going forward, this body can now begin working on the solutions for this catch-up, beginning tonight, hopefully with mask choice. While in the beginning, mitigation strategies such as masking and social distancing were accepted as necessary, it was also labeled as temporary. We need to now pivot as a society and as a district and start moving towards normalcy again. Speaking personally as a teacher, I look forward to February 28th, where in my school district, very close to here, I will finally be able to see my students' faces again. Speaking as a parent in this district, I'm anxiously awaiting this announcement tonight for our kids here in Seymour. Thank you. Good afternoon.
here for that. All comments and questions should go through the chair, please. Dr. Compton, if you want to kick us off.
Yes, I'd like to start first with Mrs. Bennett and in regard to the presentation to just discuss about the surveys. It's been, Lindsay like to come up. I think it's important for the public to know that it's spoken tonight, that your messages have been heard by the board, they've been heard by myself, Mrs. Tenzin, by administration. And I want you to know that no matter what, in all of this business, you're also going to have other people who are for wearing masks, and you have those tonight that are not for wearing masks. I can tell you that 71.9% of the people surveyed in the school community, they support mask choice. So I think at the end of this meeting, there will be a finalization and a recommendation made. I think it's just important that you see the facts. I will tell you that in regards to what we're doing, I think you all know that the CDC guidelines still support wearing masks, but we're not going there to discuss CDC and various other organizations. But I can tell you this has not been, this process has been thought through very thoroughly. It was an excellent survey that was actually prepared by Mrs. Bennett and Mr. Champagne. We sent it out, and I think it's just real important that we share and talk to you about what these results said. I think it's also important for you to know that our school position supports mask choice. But again, you have variations out there in various towns. The one thing that I do want to tell you, and I will do that later in the meeting, is if the board directs me to do a letter, which I basically have prepared a draft letter, but I'm going to tell you one or two things that's really important in that letter, and I want you to really listen to me. But it's also being concerns too of board members in regards to what happens if the COVID numbers would go up. Well, we would have a plan, and I'll share that with you, and that would be in the draft letter. We hear you tonight. We appreciate everybody having an opportunity to voice their opinions. And I can tell you there have been some emails from very sincere parents, who don't want the mask off. And again, talking about if the kid wants to wear a mask, let that child wear a mask. And like I said, the board will discuss what their decision will be. But I just want everybody to respect everybody and to show kindness. And as one or two board members have said to me, Dr. Compton, I don't want anybody being bullied about whether they got a mask on or not. So that goes back to administration principles and the rest of us and how we handle that, because nobody needs to be bullying anybody. Now, does it occur sometimes in schools? Yes, it does. Before, sometimes we know about it. But we're not going to let people bully one another about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Okay, Mrs. Bennett, you are the health professional. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to direct the superintendent to draft a letter to the Seymour Public School community that will include language saying no longer, mask wearing in school settings will no longer be mandated and will encourage a mask option for anyone preferring to continue to wear a mask.
I have a motion on the floor, Dr. James. Do I have a second? Jen? All right, let's open it up for discussion.
Sorry, I'm trying to read from the letter. I'd like to make a, I'd like to make a motion to direct the superintendent to send a letter to the Seymour Public School community stating that starting February 28th, Seymour Public Schools will no longer mandate mask wearing in school settings and will encourage a mask option for anyone preferring to continue to wear a mask.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, perhaps
mention to everybody that's here that even though within our buildings, the masks are not required, right now, masks are still going to be required on buses to and from school. So that is one caveat to that we don't have control over, just like the mask mandate until now.
If I may ask another question, I'm sorry, I think you know the answers to these, I think I have the answers, but I just want the public. Have you received any indication that there is a strong contingent of our membership that is in favor of continuing the mask mandate?
Based on these surveys, it seems, and I believe the numbers went up higher than that. So,
Sorry, I meant amongst our membership on this board.
no.
My question was, does the chair have reason to believe that a strong contingent of us on the board would like to continue the mandate? It needs to do our own. Right. I was asking if there was, five of us, because we need to be five.
So, I'm very hesitant to lift the mask mandate at this, middle of winter time period. I would be much more comfortable if we were having this discussion in 4 to 6 weeks from now, where we can really open windows and we can have a little bit more assurance of airflow, we can have a little bit more space between where we are now and the Omicron spike that just happened. But I want to vote, and I'm a grown-up and I'm perfectly okay not being in the majority. And I want to stress what Dr. Compton said, that this is about respect. And when we hear people say things like, enough is enough, do the right thing, that's not respectful. Respectful is valuing people's individual opinions, because there is no fact that anyone can rest their head on. There are multiple expert opinions out there. So in the spirit of respect, I'm sharing my views with the public tonight. And I absolutely respect the majority vote that this board will have. So I just think a little bit of grace, a little bit of kindness, and a little bit of respect, because this pandemic has been damaging for every single one of us, including and absolutely our most vulnerable, our littlest children, our high schoolers. Let's not point it out because it's all on this. It's the pandemic that has done this. So I'm one person. I will vote the way my heart tells me to vote. And if we were having this conversation in 6 to 8 weeks, and all of the numbers stayed as they were now, I would unequivocally be, yes, let's go mask optional. So that's where I am today. And I hope that I've earned enough respect, being a board member of 10 years, reading everything that I get my hands on, talking with medical professionals. It's my opinion, it's my vote, and it's only one.
Chairman, I just wanted to say that I didn't mean to interrupt our nursing professionals here. I just wanted to put a motion or something on the floor as we were having a discussion. So, I didn't want to defer.
No hard feelings, Jay.
speaking,
Totally fine. No hard
or be
feelings.
disrespectful, but, I find this something that's difficult when we are having a discussion, but we don't necessarily have a target as to what we are necessarily discussing, excuse me. So, if you do still want to, through the chair, speak, please do so. I didn't need to cut you off. I just want to make sure we have a focus point, so I apologize.
So we very much listened to everybody also, and we thought it was really important, being medical providers, being that we are in the buildings every day with the students and collecting the data. And collecting the data, reporting it, and we thought it was important to take some factual data of our own community and put it together to make a decision, not just a blanket statement or whatever. One of our main things that we took into consideration was the district doctor who spoke with the infectious disease doctor at Yale and collaborated, and he supported us in that he thinks that masks should be optional at this point. And he was able to give us a statement tonight. Another thing was listening to the community. We sent that survey out because it is important. We do want to hear what you guys think and how you feel. And it was an overwhelming, from the beginning, I think we had 1,166 responses, and it was a solid 73% throughout, right from the beginning. So that didn't waver. We heard you loud and clear. We did look at the surrounding community, all the districts that were going or already going mask optional, and then we compared our numbers, our vax rates to them, and we're just where they are also. So as medical providers, we do support this decision. We also support the people who are concerned for their students, and we very much respect that. We're going to continue to care for them. We hope that everybody feels comfortable wearing masks. We're still going to hand out masks if they want them. We decided today that we're actually working on creating a social story that will be shared, especially in the elementary schools and something similar in the older schools, that will explain that a child isn't necessarily wearing a mask because they're sick, but maybe because they're protecting a grandparent, or they feel safer wearing it, so that it'll be understood, so it's not, nobody's getting picked on. So there's been a lot of thought, and like I said, a lot of facts that went into this, a lot of data selection, and that's what I think is most important for our area. So we put this packet together and presented it to the board, and we wondered if the board had any questions on what we presented tonight.
So just for some clarification around, I think one of the comments tonight was about, with it still being winter. Can you talk a little bit about where we've seen the positivity rate in our population go over the past 6 to 8 weeks? Just so you can put that in context.
So on the degree packets, we don't have anything. Do you have the packet? It's our positivity rate for the town, and it shows where we went from January to February. You guys can't see that, but it was a drastic
It's actually on the second to last page. So the positivity rates have plummeted. In January, they were, on the higher side. However, we've seen them decrease by more than half. And we've gone days without having positive cases reported, which is great. We've gone days without schools having children in quarantine, which is also great. So
many of our trackers are empty at this point, so that means we don't have kids in quarantine. Like I said, the reporting is not as much. Another really big indicator is our staff, and I think this is really great, but in Seymour, 93% of our staff is vaccinated as a whole. And per school, it's almost like the lowest is 88, and it goes all the way to 97% vaccinated. So that does make a difference for staff, it makes a difference for the students. And when we look at students vaccinated, that number is important, but like we talked about before, there is a great deal. If you look at the live tracker, which we will continue to maintain, 484 of our students have already had COVID. So you take that immunity on top of the students who did get vaccinated, and we are somewhat protected. Of course, there's no guarantees, and I said, Lindsay and I talked about this, but when we were out and we came back to school, there were a lot of very nervous people then. I mean, even staff, we were scared. Was it the right time? Do we move forward? But we had to take that chance, and we definitely need to get back to normal.
And how sick were those kids that had COVID, most of them?
And I agree, and we could both speak to that we are definitely concerned and aware of the mental health issues. And we definitely want to focus, and we have been focusing on that. And I believe this is one step. Yes, this pandemic, it's not just caused by masks. That is true what Mrs. Humlin said. This pandemic has caused a lot, I think a lot of students and staff have PSPS from this. I mentioned today, it's like been running this marathon for 2 years. And we're finally at that point.
2020.
Yeah, I know.
All schools were closed in the majority of all states in the country, most of the world.
2 years later, we're still here, we're still talking about this. So it's been a long, strenuous journey. And I know myself, I'm looking forward to it.
Anybody else have questions for our
I love the idea of the social story. I am always trying to think of the social emotional needs and mental health of our students and staff. I think that's start. I'd like to encourage Dr. Compton to work with the principal and the mental health professionals in the school. It's going to be overwhelming for some kids processing all of the information without masks on, and there's going to need to be some direct teaching around that, as well as just fatigue. Remember how tired we all felt going home when we first started wearing masks. It's going to be the same thing. about patience, compassion, and instruction and support, whereas needed is going to have to be really primary focus as we move forward.
The good news is, I have to say, and I'm not mocking anything, but half of the kids in our school don't wear the mask right anyway. So I do believe that it's definitely going to be a challenge, but not that big of a challenge, because in my office, I can't tell you all day, they come in and they're like this, and, you know, so I mean, I definitely think that they adapt way better than you think they do. Even in the beginning, when we had to wear masks, you know, we thought it would be a nightmare, and they did better. So luckily, I think children are way more resilient than we are.
They actually did better than the adults.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Any other questions for us?
All right, thank you. I do see that Mrs. Buscemi is standing in the back. I don't know if we want to take just a minute and get a staff point of view.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. And hello, planning board members that have not had a chance to meet yet. I'm Lee Kuczynski, president of the Seymour Education Association. And as recently as just this morning, we did our own survey of teachers just to see where our members stand when it comes to the whole masking issue. So we asked 3 questions on our survey. The first one was, what's your current position on Seymour schools, staff and students wearing face masks? And 81% of the teachers surveyed, 81% that would like to move to optional masking for staff and students. The 19% want to continue with universal masking indoors for staff and students. Then the second question was, if the district moves to optional masking and the data metrics and recent trends indicate a spike in the community and district prevalence and transmission of COVID-19, would you agree with returning to universal masking indoors for staff and students? And response was 68% agree with that, and 32% said no. And then our last question was, do you agree that moving forward, the Board of Education should have a process in place for continuous risk assessment and prompt decision-making regarding masking decisions based on current metrics and recent trends from state and local public health agencies? 71% said yes, and 29% said no. And then we gave a space in case anyone wanted to write anything in. So it seemed like teachers who did some write-ins, those that were moving to the optional masking talked about how it's so important to see our students' faces. The students that we teach, when you have a group of anywhere from 20 to 30 students in front of you, it is so important to be able to see their emotions on their face, to read them and see how they are feeling. The 19% that want to continue with masking, their main concern was with just working in small groups when they are so close to students. That was the thing that they were concerned about. So those were really the main concerns that people brought up. But I thought it would be important for you to hear where your largest group of staff members were coming from. So thank you for listening, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Anybody have any questions? All right, perfect. Any more discussion?
Just one more comment, just building on the last particular question that was asked in the survey. I understand that you've got administration would do something with this, I do understand that. But I would really like to see kind of a documented set of guidelines as to what our plan will be. And that really does build off of the government's latest, the governor or the state guidance about thought discussions the district should have about masking, and that there should be a plan in place to address the spike. So maybe after this motion, we could continue our conversation on that case and figure out how to get that done as well.
Do you have something to add?
Yeah, let me address it after.
Okay.
I'll add one more thing. With respect to what Ms. Harmeling said, and I very much respect her opinion on this, I think what we're doing here, calling a special meeting to essentially ask the superintendent to write a letter that you would have had to do anyways, is sort of a waste of time. And for that reason, I'm going to abstain on this vote. That's
those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 6-1. So then, so we're still on top of this? Did you want to?
Yeah, I would just like to mention, and it's to really kind of follow up with the statement that Mrs. Harmley said, what would be the plan in regards if the COVID would spike back up into just a super high percentage? And I'm going to be very honest with you tonight. We've drafted letters. I've had drafted letters. Mrs. Timpson, I've had letter A, letter B, and letter C. One would be, show us being allowed whether to wear a mask or not. Another would be to have to wear a mask. And also, after a lot of concentration and a lot of thinking, this is something that I have put in a draft letter that I think is really important. And the one letter that I pulled up here that I do have is in regards, since they have voted to direct me to send a letter. I have a letter here that is giving people the option whether to wear a mask or not wear a mask. And that's very important. But one of the things I do want to mention that I did put in the letter, please remember, please understand that we're going to continue to monitor the daily data and health trends, and we'll continue to communicate and totally respond to any concerning health patterns. Please understand that if COVID hospitalizations and related data significantly would increase, and the Board of Education may reconvene and vote to reinstate a mandated need. Now, we're talking about, say, if we get into a situation where COVID numbers could be through the roof, a lot of hospitalizations would be going on, then it would be something to come back and say, what are we going to do? Some boards are passing policies, some policies are needed, some policies are not. I'm just saying, if we would have something other than Omicron, or something that would just come out of the woodwork in regard to the need to come back. And we want to monitor this. We have two health professionals that are with us here tonight. I'm just saying, we're taking them off, but for those that want to take them off. But we're going to continue to monitor this because it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of research out here, whether these work or don't work. We all know about the KN95 and so forth. But the protection of research, they've really not proven everything. And it's all in who you ask. But we can tell you that we've got to look at the data and see how our kids do and our staff does. Because we've got to protect everybody. Okay? So I just want to state that. And also, whoever, whatever, if somebody did respond to middle school students, we'll make sure that the child is responded to. I can speak on behalf of the board. I think one of our parents mentioned how come I responded, but they did. Let me just take up to the Board of Ed here. Sometimes when you send it to the Board of Ed, I'm also included, and they give me the opportunity to respond. I did get so many emails, I'm going to tell you, I had so many coming that were in support of mask choice, and then I had some that were not in support of mask choice. And I probably missed about, I don't know, 3 or 5 out of about 200 emails. I mean, I got a lot of emails that even the board didn't get. So people want their voices to be heard, and we value every person. Okay, but I want to take up to the board because, and many times they'll let me go ahead and I know the answer, and I can respond out of respect. Let the superintendent answer if you know the answer. Okay, sometimes I don't know it. Okay, we're here to work together. We're here to better communicate, and we're here also to protect each and every one of these children, whether they're wearing a mask or not. So thank you.
All right. I think the mask discussion's finally over.
I'd actually like to make a motion to grant the superintendent the authority to make the call on
whether a mask mandate reinstatement is necessary for our district. My fear is that it sometimes takes too long to bring us all together, and I trust in our administration and in our medical staff and the relationships that they have with our school doctor, with Valley Health, how they have an in with the rest of the state. So I would like to make a motion to grant the authority to our superintendent to reinstate the mask mandate as she feels may be necessary, and hopefully that will never happen.
Motion by Kristen, second by Jay. Any discussion on that?
I'm in favor of this, but are we allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay, then. Cool.
Technically, by how it was written just recently, that's all we had to do. To your point from before, we didn't have to, come to this, but yeah.
I mean, if we get such an emergency, we'll be sharing with everybody if this ever happens again. Trust me.
Any other questions?
I would just comment that I'm in support of that just based on the track record of Dr. Compton with communicating with the board and with the community, and knowing that that decision would be made with input from stakeholders. So I will support that.
All right, anyone else? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Anything else on mask? All right, we're done. Next up, we have a Seymour Schools budget discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to table a budget discussion potentially until our next regularly scheduled meeting, with the potential for having a committee meeting between now and then.
Second.
Motion by Kristen, second by Jay. All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, we have Board of Ed comments, Chairman's comments. I don't have anything. Thank you for coming.
I think it was best to table the budget discussion because, there's still some things that we're still working on.
Do you have any board member comments? Hearing none. Any additional comments from you, Dr. Compton?
No.
No? All right. Second part of public comment. Public comment going twice.
I just have a question based on everything that was said. I'm Brooke Anderson. I live at 210 Mountain. You had mentioned watching the numbers to reinstate, and you mentioned spikes in COVID cases and hospitalizations. Will it be the hospitalizations that are considered more, or the COVID cases? Because I think
It'd be the COVID cases, right? It would be a combination. Basically, the hospitalizations is what they tell us first, and I'd let the nurse talk to that. But it would have to be just an absolute emergency of a situation that, it would have to be a very large percentages, almost to the point of, we got in one tough situation this year when we didn't know if we were going to have enough teachers to cover classrooms. And that was the biggest spike of all. I don't think we're going back there. I'm just telling you, if we ever had an emergency that was so high that would absolutely gather input from the physicians and everybody.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I think we're seeing that we're getting to the point where when people get it, it's very mild.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm just wondering if that will also be taken into consideration.
Right, absolutely. And the fact that people that, as you said, are getting it are having very mild symptoms, most of them, and the fact of the high vaccination rate in Connecticut and in this community and so forth. We really think that we're on the downward road.
Right.
And I don't think we would have a need. I'm just saying sometimes you never know what kind of a variant that could come again. I don't think it will, but I can't foresee everything in the future. I never thought that a pandemic, a virus, would shut the world down.
Thank you for that. I just
Thank
have
you.
one quick piggyback on that. So the masks really aren't the only thing that's impacting, especially at the elementary school level. I'm wondering if with the lifting of the mask mandate, if more curriculum-based things are going to go back to normal. Things like, PTA events and field trips and things like that, because the kids are also missing out on all of those things, and it's not, just the masks that's impacting
can't totally answer it completely, but I can tell you that we're trying to get back gradually to normal as much as possible, and our administrators are here tonight as well. We want these children to try to get back to a normal life, but they're still when you look at the recommended mitigation strategies, we've got to be very careful. There's something to be said about spacing and so forth and so on, but we want to try to get back as actually having a complete normal school day. I think you'll see that after the beginning of next year, but we want to try to get this back normal as possible. We're going to do our best, as long as we're safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Jonathan Leslie, 133 Great Bell Road. Just a quick question, I'm not sure who to address it to, but with the mask mandate now lifted, or February 28th now lifted, what does that mean for after-school activities, sports, athletics? Does that also mean it's optional?
So,
Anything that occurs in the
I know this is a hot topic, but we don't want to get into a back and forth in this situation, but I'll answer quickly. Mask are off unless you're on a bus. That's the bottom line.
It's a public transportation and a school bus and a plane and a train.
So anything in the school itself, athletics?
Right, if people decide not to have it on, yes.
The CIAC hasn't spoken yet, that's true.
correct.
Yes, the only thing the CIC has said thus far is that starting February 28th, masks can be removed during competition. But I'm kind of thinking that they'll follow suit and make an announcement soon.
Any other comments? Going 2 times. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is closed.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Kristen, second by Stefan. All those in favor?
Aye.